Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable, Legally Speaking with Steve Seidman. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. Today is Saturday, January 22nd, 2022. Our host is Kelley, who you just heard. My name is Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. We have a great show today. We have a partner, Stephen J. Seidman. He's the founding attorney of Seidman Law Office with over 30 years as an experienced trial lawyer focused on personal injury. Steve is America's Heroes Group's partner, sponsor, and advisory board member. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Great to have you on today.
Well, thank you for having me. I wanted to just kind of recap some things that have been going on, and not going on for that matter, with the military and veterans issues. And if I could start, I'm going to start by talking about certain handling of the military of sex crimes and the way that they have failed victims. And this is executive producer you just mentioned, her name, Glenda Smith, has been at this a while. And we actually thought that there was some change that was sort of happening, especially after this young woman, Ms. Guillen, was murdered. And apparently, though, we're sort of going backwards in certain of the places in the military. The U.S. Armed Services, they were found to consistently assign certified investigators and special prosecutors, and this they were charged with actually recently going ahead and finding out what's going on with certain sex crimes. And they're pushing, the legislature was pushing to make significant changes to the military justice system, especially with these sexual crimes that are being committed against the female officers.
So were they doing this in a positive direction, or were they making changes to...
No, there was positive direction. Okay. A lot of that was because of stuff that they found out through the chain of command that was not being done appropriately. They issued a report that they want to change. This young woman from the suburbs of Chicago, Ms. Guillen, was murdered, and turned out that there was sexual discrimination going on and cover-ups with regard to that. And we thought that we really had sort of a sea change going on with that. But recently, the Office of Inspector General, the Department of Defense, came back and released a report that stated from June 18 to May of 20, the military branch units did not comply with federal law and department policy requiring them to designate certified investigators and specially trained prosecutors in some sexual assault and domestic violence cases. And recently, we found out that at Fort Bragg that there were some very troubling statistics coming out. And the Defense Sexual Assault Incident Database showed there were 51 violent sex crimes reported at Fort Bragg in 2018, 49 in 2019, 36 in 2020. And in August, in 2018, there were 20 rapes or attempted rapes reported. In 2014, and at least 7 in 2020. And recently, Rolling Stone had a great article about how an individual who was an advocate for sexual victims advocate, and she was formerly assigned to Special Forces at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. She was placed on administrative leave, investigated for 2 years, and ultimately fired after she raised questions about the military's handling of a Delta Force soldier accused of rape.
That's crazy.
What happened to this individual, her name was Lindsay Knapp. She was basically a civilian employee of the U.S. Army Special Operations Command. And what they did is they were there to support victims of sexual abuse. This just was reported in January, by the way. So there was a young artillery officer named Erin Scanlon, a female, and they investigated this, and they found out that Scanlon said that the Army mishandled her case And it turned out that the victim advocate, Knapp, said there were all kinds of things that went wrong. In 2016, Scanlon went to the agents of the Army CID, or Criminal Investigative Division, said, hey, I was raped on the hood of a junk car behind a metal warehouse at Fort Bragg after a drunken fundraiser at a nearby bar. Apparently, there was ample evidence to support the rape and that a sexual assault had occurred, including a sexual assault exam, accusatory text messages, and the like. And she went to the police department in Fayetteville by Fort Bragg the next day. They collected DNA evidence, and it was concluded that a man named Vallejo was arrested for second-degree rape. He was someone who worked on base. He was indicted, faced up to 19 years in state prison, but 2 weeks before he was set to be tried in civilian court, the military prosecutors came in and said, we want to be the one to prosecute this man, drop the charges against him, we're going to take over.
That's crazy.
So what basically followed was a quiet court-martial that the rape victim, Scanlon, was excluded from attending, in which all the jurors were senior Special Forces soldiers. They basically swept it under rug, gave a quiet court-martial, and this victim's advocate, Knapp, observed the trial firsthand, and she was absolutely livid what she saw. She said that basically the idea that this guy, that he basically had chances of being convicted that were slim and none. She then drafted a 5-page letter to to the attorneys, and what did they do? They fired her. They basically took her out.
Why would the military go and stick their neck out for someone who's already been convicted in civilian court for rape?
They said that he wasn't convicted in civilian court. They indicted him in civilian court. They wanted to try him in civilian court where he would have gotten 20-some-odd years. And in response to that, the military justice court said, hey, step back. We're the guys that are in charge here. You know, we want to prosecute this particular male rapist, basically, alleged rapist at the time. And so they did it in the court-martial hearings.
But I was always under the impression that when you're in the military, if you're active duty, when I was active duty, if you do anything in the civilian world, you could get penalized in the UCMJ, but you could also suffer consequences in the jurisdiction that you're in. Is that
exactly? True? Except that didn't happen here. Because they basically, the military court in this particular Fort Bragg came in, they took over, and they convinced the state's attorney to drop all charges, saying it's our jurisdiction. And in fact, they did drop all charges because they said it was their jurisdiction.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. What's crazier is you have a victim's advocate that's there to protect the victim, and then all of a sudden she gets basically accused of conduct unbecoming a federal employee because she so harshly reprimanded her authorities, saying what happened here is a travesty of justice. So she gets reprimanded, then terminated, and she has not worked for the military since. So she's pursuing a workplace discrimination claim at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But it's almost surreal that this could happen. The military judge who oversaw the court-martial appeared before a Pentagon advisory committee and asked if he could explain why there's such a very low conviction rates of soldiers accused of rape. And so he replied, well, many of these cases are factually weak because commanders are under an incredible amount of pressure from politicians and the media to press charges, even when proof is lacking. As a result, he said, it's often a very bad case, very bad facts, and you're going to get an acquittal. So what he's basically saying is, hey, we're just doing this because we got to do this. So I guess what I'm asking all of us is, what have we accomplished by basically allowing this to occur? And I would hope that this case is brought to the attention. I mean, Rolling Stones did a great article on it. And I would hope that this case is brought to publicity about how things are swept under the rug, and especially we're still basically the same old culture.
Right.
That people get, women get raped. Who cares?
Right. And the thing
that's what it seems to me.
Yeah, and the thing that's most important that we're bringing up is the fact that it's not that we're trying to assign guilt to the plaintiff or the defendant. We're basically saying let the actual judicial process go along the way it's supposed to. When you start to interfere and take pieces away from that, then you don't have a fair trial. You don't have a fair investigation. At least have a fair investigation so we can get to the facts and have a real trial. When you start playing favoritism and saying, hey, we're going to supersede this, or we're going to cut this part of the law out, it's not fair, because you have a lot of people that are in jail right now for lesser things. And you have people that are doing heinous things that are getting away.
Right. And military courts operate under what we call the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is a legal system. We all know it's entirely separate from that which applies to civilian courts.
Right.
Okay,
so people don't realize it's actually more draconian than civilian court. UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, is way more strict than civilian law. So it's unfathomable that somebody can do. You can actually be reprimanded for masturbating under the UCMJ.
Now, in the UCMJ, which is the statute, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you just cited the initials for it, and actually the statute governing sexual assault and the related procedural rules, in federal court's tough, right? But they're substantially the same as would apply in state or federal court. So then I have to ask you, if that's true, right, and you could get, for masturbating, you could get, let's say, convicted or charged under at the UCMJ, then why is it that a rape that was given, you just sweep it under the rug, give the guy a court-martial and say, okay, goodbye? I mean, you get court-martial, obviously there's a lot of ramification with that.
Right.
With
Once upon a time, I mean, being gay or homosexual was considered sodomy, or is considered wrong or illegal under the UCMJ.
Yep.
So, and then there was,
yeah. I mean, and then you have police, in this article, I encourage everybody to read it, you had basically police were blocked on national security grounds from interviewing key witnesses. The Special Forces Command refused to disclose the detectives the names of 2 other Delta Force officers, friends of the rapist who were present at the time of the alleged assault. I mean, they failed to ask to interview these people. And so it's just, to me, I mean, what have we spent all this time is it just in words? Is that what we're supposed to be doing, is just saying, okay, we've made all these changes and everybody's okay, and then really it means absolutely nothing? I mean, there should be some ramifications for these type of things. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention, that, there needs to be a little bit of a lot of shouting and screaming about that one.
So what do you think? What do you think could be done to remedy this problem? So what needs to be done to make more accountability to the people who make these promises, and also say that they're going to do certain things? How do we hold them accountable to make the change?
Well,
happen?
the only way to do it, it's like Lenny Bruce. He used to say Lenny Bruce was an old comedian. He said, "In the halls of justice, the only justice you get are in the halls." Right? And I mean, it's a sad look at it, and it's a sad perspective of it. But let's face it, the only thing that gets people frosted is when there's publicity. And now I just heard on the news right before I came on that the public has an 18% approval rate of Congress. 18%.
Yeah. Okay?
So now you think, okay, let's go to Congress, let's have hearings, let's do all this and that. But if there's an 18% approval rating from the public, who's going to believe that anything's happening? Or are they just going to believe it's swept under the rug? So how do you make a change? It's like anything else. You get a group of people and you start a movement. And that's the only way you make this. And I thought, quite frankly, I was really optimistic about it from all these years that that's what was happening. And I know Glenda was working so hard on that to make sure. And all these things were like put into effect. But you know what? You got to do the job,
right?
Okay? You can't just sweep under saying there's just women involved. Don't worry about it.
Right. You got to do real investigations.
Do it.
Real work. You can't just this. It seems like it's an old boys' school and then kind of an good old boys' school that's at play. That the people are trying to cover each other's back and make sure that they watch each other over each other's shoulders. in any circumstance, even when they do something wrong. When a true brother tells you, hey, that was a wrong thing you did, you need to get that fixed. Instead of trying to be accountable and stand up for what's right, you have people kind of cowering and hiding in the shadows, doing things that are wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's got to end. I think it's got to be brought, a big spotlight has to be brought on that, like so many other things, but that's one of the many things in the military. Some good news that I wanted to bring for veterans, at the Chief Judge, Tim Evans, recently came out and allowed Veterans Treatment Court at Layton Courthouse, and they're going to benefit from $350,000 grant to aid Veteran Restorative Justice Project. What that is $350,000 grant for the University of Chicago Veterans Restorative Justice Project will provide aid to the Veterans Treatment Center in the criminal court building, which helps veterans who have criminal cases. So the 2-year grant is from the Robert McCormick Foundation, and what it is, it's going to allow University of Chicago and other entities to help with veterans who have criminal issues. And so they could avail themselves. Like we were just talking about the civil justice system and how certain veterans, but Evans said that he announced a partnership between the University of Chicago and the Circuit Court to help veterans who are struggling and are trying to rebuild their lives after coming into contact with the criminal justice system. And he said, and this is a great quote, "Our heroic veterans stood firm in shoring up our nation's safety, security, and freedom. Now we have to help them find productive lives outside of the service." So what they're doing is, if people, and we know that a lot of people for various reasons, whether it's drugs or personal issues, they have criminal issues. And as a result now, the Veterans Treatment Courts are part of the Cook County court systems of problem-solving courts. They include drug treatment courts, mental health treatment courts, and they're going to be in the Layton criminal court, so that veterans are going to get some benefit from legal services for free because of these grants, which I think is an excellent idea. And so I looked into Lake County, seeing that Cook County was doing this. Lake County, of course, is up by Waukegan and north of Lake Cook Road up north, and they're actually allowing incarcerated veterans to virtually connect to VA specialists. So, for instance, if there is something they need for health care, learning resources through the GI Bill, and one guy said, to say that I served my country, I look at it very fondly. A Navy veteran, he's serving time as a sex offender in Lake County, but he's now getting medical care at Level Health Care System and other specialties, special programs that the VA allows. And so I think a lot of these, hopefully, we're going to see a trickling of more and more veterans services to those people who are incarcerated. So I think that's a really good step in the right direction. And if I could just give a couple of other, I know I'm running out of time, but I always like to just go through a little bit of news. But, a lot of U.S. veterans have been subject to terrorist attacks throughout the course of their, let's say, in Iraq, for instance, in Iran. And the United States is trying to cut a deal with Iran over this nuclear deal and treaty. But do you realize there are $60 billion in unpaid terrorism lawsuits, judgments, $60 billion, and associated liens as a result of U.S. court cases against Iran, with billions more tied up in pending claims. So what the Biden administration is being pressured to do by U.S. veterans and families, and this was an NBC News report, is they're urging Biden administration not to release billions in frozen funds on the Obama administration with the treaty unless and until terror cases are settled for all these veterans and people who were actually terrorized and receive judgments, court judgments against Iraq and Iran in absentia. So,
Steve, I got to cut you off there because we're running out of time. But that's an interesting topic, and I appreciate you for coming on the show. We have to explore that next time you're on the show. We want to talk about that in detail. This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.